Bam! Mr. Giroux, as we enter winter break, I kind of want to give a small gift to viewers of mine that are commenting on my handwriting and are asking me for a follow-up video that I made a while ago, my capital cursive calligraphy or something like that, my cursive capital letters. And I included only the capital letters because that's where in my handwriting most of the flourishes come from, and I just kind of really honestly consider the rest of my handwriting sort of just neat cursive. As far as the capital letters go, and actually the rest of this, to be honest, mostly is influenced by a type of lettering called copperplate. It's a font that I learned in my late 20s when someone asked me to do their wedding invitations, and I gave them a sheet full of fonts, even though I could only write like 3 different ways, and the one that they picked was copperplate. And after about 300 invitations, I certainly would not call myself a master, but got to a handwriting style that, at least I'm getting feedback on my videos, that quite a few people like. And unfortunately, in the world of all of our schools having standardized testing, focusing so much on the math and the reading or whatnot, and everyone using computers or texting on their phones, the art of cursive is unfortunately fading away. And hopefully that doesn't make all my videos obsolete, because I write cursive. And I've had viewers actually tell me that they struggled reading my handwriting a little bit because they've only ever been exposed to print. But cursive not only goes much quicker when you're good at it, but it's also, you can make it beautiful. And I'm not just talking about my style of handwriting. So I feel like it's a very important, way of getting your message across, writing a love letter, writing a note to your parents, giving them something more than just a text message or an email that can get lost if your hard drive crashes or something like that, or someone takes your phone. Some tangible piece of paper that can be looked at decades later as a keepsake. So, in the video I'm going to talk a little bit about how to properly write with a calligraphy nib. Granted, I'm using a piece of chalk, and this is just my standard writing now, whether I'm using a pencil pen or even a calligraphy nib. Now, a calligraphy nib is got a straight edge, at least if you're right-handed. It's on a 45-degree angle if you're left. And when you write with a calligraphy nib, it needs to be held at roughly 45 degrees to horizontal, and that can vary based on different types of fonts or lettering that you're doing. But as you look across my writing, all of the sort of thin lines created by, I'm trying to hold my 2 pieces of chalk to emulate a small thin nib, kind of all should go at around the same angle. Now, I'm not writing on a piece of paper, of course, so this isn't going to be perfect, but that 45-degree angle will sort of create a little bit of elegance to the lettering as you move around. With a calligraphy nib, you cannot push it, you can only pull. So if you're first learning calligraphy, you want to just practice some sort of sweeps with your pen, like some sort of horizontal S's, maybe some arcs here in certain different fashions, and get used to holding that pen, or could even be a calligraphy marker, so that those thin lines, again, only appear at around that angle of 45 degrees. It's very difficult to get used to not wrapping or rotating your wrist around or moving your arm to throw off that angle and such. Okay, at any rate, we're going to put some capital letters along the top of the board in case you didn't watch my other videos, and then string along some corresponding lowercase letters along the bottom. Well, we're going to start, of course, with the beginning of the alphabet, capital A. I'm going to write these out and then discuss the strokes that you would have to do if you're using a proper calligraphy pen, where you can only pull that pen. You can't push it like you can with a pen or pencil. So we have an A, which is 1, 2, 3, and then as I like to draw it, 4, as in 4 strokes. That's capital A. Capital B, and I'm going to do all my flourishes rather not fancy, but I like well, you're going to see here, like a B. I'm going to kind of give it a cap, if you will, and I am going to rotate my wrist a little bit to kind of keep this flourish thin all the way to the end, even though, again, as you're writing your letters, you want that nib to be on that 45, so it's thin at those 40 to 45 degree angles here. So we have our capital A, capital B, but again, to keep this thin, I'm going to rotate my wrist over and kind of keep that flourish thin all the way along, and then hold the chalk, the 2 pieces of chalk at that proper 45 degree angle. So there's 1, 2, 3, It's a little bit small in the upper loop there, but you can adjust that as you practice your letters, and you might even want to rewrite that as well. So capital B, C, D, and then finally E. Okay, some examples of what we may want them to look like. Now, if you go on the internet and you search up calligraphy letters and fonts and writing styles on YouTube, you'll find some masters that can do these letters with very intricate flourishes and details. Again, this is just how I generally write my cursive. I'm writing these with just a few strokes of my chalk or pen or pencil, but again, with the calligraphy nib, you can only pull those. So if I come back in here and look at the A proper calligraphy pen would be with the limitations of not being able to push it, otherwise you'll splatter the ink all over the place. There's actually 1, 2, 3 strokes there, and then to create this loop in the center, which is creating what makes it look like an A, that would be, I've lost my count here, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, pick up where you started, and then start to pull with 5 strokes. And this copperplate lettering, actually it's really beautiful if you see someone use a proper calligraphy nib and they're really a master at copperplate. I'm not going to call this copperplate, it's just what's influenced how I write. It's actually sometimes done with a pointy nib, and it's just incredibly beautiful. My capital B, well, we saw here that's going to be 1 pull, and then 2, 3, 4, and coming down here I would have picked up here with this left off and then finished with that 5th stroke. This copperplate lettering, using just a square nib if you will, is not a tremendous amount of strokes. Like if you do like a print or especially Old English, each letter can be constructed with, they would require many, many more strokes than even these letters. So you know what I'm saying, like this is 5 and 6 strokes. You know, some lettering in calligraphy is many, many more than that. C is pretty minimal regardless of how you do this. That's 1, 2, and then 3 strokes. The D, and of course you can make this loop on the D come around if you want to get real fancy. That might look a little bit funny. You can curl it all the way around. Who knows? As you practice with your own hand style and you decide on a look that you feel looks good, and looking online at these fonts that are available and letting them influence how you write, or of course maybe you want to of course learn them exactly, which is never a bad idea, make it look how you like it. So again, that's the D here, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and so on with the E, and so on and so on. Now with the lowercase letters, again, it's sort of like a nice, neat cursive, but sort of leaned over to the right, or in an italic type fashion. So we have A. Now B. When you write the letter B, of course the proper cursive way of writing B, I kind of want to string these along the bottom. So let me come over here to the left as far as I can. We have A. Now a proper B in cursive looks like that. I'm going to run all these lowercase letters together. I like to sort of blend a print B with a cursive B, and you can do it in a way that still allows you to not have to pick up your pen. You can write that as your B like that, or you can go, instead of doing sort of a loop that people not really comfortable or familiar with cursive, which fortunately is becoming more and more people, you know, we can see that a bit more clearly as a B, and then I connect to the next lowercase letter by coming off the bottom of it. But you don't really see me write B's that often, even though it's very neat. Again, these long, thin sort of hats, if you will, or flourishes, without going all crazy all over the place, I think adds a lot to the visual impact of your cursive. So what I'll do with a B, if I'm really trying to make it look neat, is, you know, here's okay, so I'm writing some kind of word like maybe cab, and here's my CA, and then with the B I'll stop here, and then knowing that I'm going to give it a nice long curved over hat, if you will, I don't know what else to call it, and there's my B. Okay, and so we have like a nice flow to it, which, because otherwise all the flourishes, all the elegance that just comes from the capital letters alone. And with some of these lowercase ones, they can kind of aid in that look. So A, B, C, and then D. And again, I'm going to stop here instead of, well, you don't have to stop. You can kind of come up here and do like a normal cursive loop for the D. but I will stop with that sort of almost looks like a C. So coming off the C, we form that first loop, and I'm going to pick up my pen or pencil or calligraphy nib, and then come over here and give that D a nice flow to it as well. And then flowing into the E, and then I'm out of my capital letters. So let's clear this off and go on to some more of the alphabet. Okay. Kind of, the line's sort of dropping there a little bit, isn't it? All right, so F. Well, when you look at a proper cursive F, it is going to look something like this. Whoops, just broke my chalk. Right back. All right, I can't sort of fake calligraphy with two pieces of chalk that aren't the same length. So now, when I first learned how to write an F, it was kind of like an F and a T looked really familiar. This was sort of a T, something like that, and an F was very similar, but you would just sort of do a little tick mark, or you would carry this F through, and I never really liked it, so I don't draw my Fs like that or write my Fs like that. My Fs, I will come through and do like a mark like that. And again, sort of start off with what looks like a T, and cursive F and capital Fs and cursive capital Ts look very similar as well. But then I'm going to come through, and again, just to add some long sort of flowy flourishes, come from the bottom through the mark, and then that's how I write my Fs. So that's an F, G, and again, my version of a G is very similar, just a standard cursive G. Now I did that basically in two strokes, right? Because again, pencil, pen, chalk, I can push it. Calligraphy marker, that would be, or pen, excuse me, would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's 5 strokes for a proper calligraphy nib or marker. So it's F, G, H, I, now I'm not writing another I, I'm setting up for a J. Well, my I and my J start off looking pretty much exactly the same, except of course then I'm going to pick up and, draw a bottom loop here. Now you can also, actually, this is a little bit incomplete. My I's normally look something like that, and my J's, again, something like that. Proper calligraphy pen where you have to pull, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 strokes. So where are we at now? We have A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, well a normal cursive F is something to that effect. Sometimes I write my F like that, sometimes I don't. You can write your lowercase f by not really, the great thing about cursive is you can just string all these lowercase letters together without ever picking up your pen, and with print, every letter is unique and individual. Which really slows up the process. But we're trying to write neat here and make something that is visually attractive. So if you want to again make something that's a bit more flowy, instead of just doing the sort of loop and then finish it off, you can finish your E here, and then 1, 2, 3. And that's actually how I normally write my Fs. And then you can come through here if you're really getting fancy and add a little sort of tail in the bottom of the F to kind of give what I think is a bit more elegance to that letter. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, there's really nowhere to continue the next letters unless I just kind of want to show that I'm really continuing on my cursive with the G. So F, G, H. Yep. Now again, the H. I can kind of just do that, and that's a cursive H. If I want to show a little bit of, make my cursive look a bit more fine and elegant, then I would stop here again, pick up my pencil or pen, put a nice long flowy line to it, very similar to the D. So F, G, H. And it's kind of like not really cursive because I'm not continuing through the lettering without having to pick up my pen, but it flows, I think, flows right into it. So we have G, H, I, J, and yeah, well, let's get this picked up with some more capital letters. So we have F, G, H, I, J, starting up with a K. All right, get my chalk here straightened away. K. 1, 2, and the K's, like letters that aren't closed or looped, again, really allow you to sort of bring out these long, thin flourishes, which, at least the feedback I'm getting, people like HJ. So the K, give us a nice long line that was going to sort of cap the top of the word. And then you can even really extend it below and just capture the word inside the capital letter. And if you don't want to be so fancy, well, then just make these strokes short as K, L, which of course was, what was that, like 2 or 3 strokes, but with a calligraphy pen that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's K, L, M. Again, you can really swing that underneath there. And I'm going to stop like I did with my other video and kind of combine some upper and lowercase letter here, like money. So like M being capital M for money. Now that Y is again a flowy, you've got tails in that letter, so you can let that Y and just sort of continue to sweep your hand around and just make some crazy flourishes with it, depending on how fancy you want to be. If it's the last word in a piece of paper and you got a lot of room on the bottom, you can kind of start this crazy, back and forth S motion to really make it look fancy. Or you can flow. I said you could do this in my previous video, but they didn't show it. You can sort of flow the M and the Y together if you like, and make it look something like this. It's just a different look. It's your handwriting. Make it look however you like. And connect those 2 letters together from the beginning to the end of the word, and have it look something like that. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not really sure if it really works with this word here. But at any rate, play with your handwriting and again, make it look how you like. Personally, I like the first version better with this particular word. All right, so we have K, L, M, N. And we're running out of space. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Okay, again, sort of having a nice little fine tail to end with. I don't have any place to pick up the next letter, so I'm just going to kind of attach it here. So J, K. Well, okay, again with the K I can do this. Or, I usually don't do that. That looks more like regular cursive. So I just will probably leave those letters completely unattached. And J, K. And just have it nice and close. It's not going to look like there's a real break in the word and you're continuing off into some other random word, unless you do actually put a space there. J, K, L, M, N, O. Okay, I got some room here. There's not much you can do with an O, really. It's just an O, right? So there's sort of a capital O. If you want to put a little loop at the top to give it some fanciness, that's fine. So we have a capital M, N, O, finishing off there. Well, now my whole board's taken up, so let's pause this video and get this cleaned off. Leaving off with O, we're at P. So LMAO, P. Okay, P. You can keep it simple, or do still simple, but leave some nice long trailing lines to, I think, add some elegance to your lettering. So that's how I write my P's, and you can loop these around some more. If you don't like the way that kind of sort of S's, you can just let that loop around and continue your P that way. Make it look how you like. I generally make my P's look something like that. So P, Q. Okay, capital Q looks something like just a sort of weird fancy 2. Most people aren't going to be able to read that anymore since fewer and fewer people are being taught cursive, which is, I think, horrible. So, and I just like to just draw, just draw a circle, or excuse me, a O, and give it a nice little tail. So P, Q, R. And again, I like to have my long sort of lines just come around, and you know, if I want to write a word inside that letter, like rain, I can actually just let the capital letter encompass the word that I'm writing in it. I think it makes it look quite pretty. So we have R, S. So S is going to be here 1, 2, at least if you're using a pen or a pencil. With a calligraphy nib, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And it takes a lot of practice to be able to kind of, you know, let's see here. Let's try that again. 1, 2. You know, where you pick up somewhere else, it's really a lot of practice is required. And I'm not perfect, but to start somewhere else, make a smooth, nice, flowing arc, and then have it meet where you were. So that was at 1, 2, 3, 4. And sometimes, you know, kind of stop and let it look like that line is going behind the other line and give some three-dimensional space to your letters. So P, Q, R, S, T. Cursive T looks something to that effect. I'm kind of rushing through it because, I don't know, don't really particularly like the way they look. I just make my T's look really pretty basic, to be honest, and just let the top be a nice flowy sort of horizontal S. So S, T. And I'm running out of space. I'll usually let that loop over here be kind of the same size, if not bigger, than what's on the left. So we're getting almost to the end of the alphabet. S, T. All right, so P. Well, of course, lowercase p. What was that for? Say P. That's how I write it. You know, I guess we're supposed to sort of write it like what? If I'm coming off another letter, like cop. See, I still don't even really want to write it as a P where you're doing it all in one motion. I always sort of leave that tail at the bottom. So let's just leave it at, that's how I write my P. So P, Q, R. So now notice, you know, I guess I can attach that P from the bottom. So P, Q, R, S, T. Let's just finish it here. T, U, V, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y. Now, I should be kind of carrying over to the next letter, but most of the time with my Y's, I'll finish with a nice fine loop like this, or I'll take that double and just start to kind of like swing it around and really make this look very, very fancy. That's not proper cursive. It would be coming back up and then going right into the Z. But depending on how much flourish you want to add, that's how normally in my Y's I actually leave a space and then go to the next letter. So I have what is going to be here a Z in a second. That crazy flourish is not going to look very good with the Z next to it because it's going to loop down. So X, Y, Z. And you see what I just did there? I kind of made the illusion that it was connecting by starting the Z at the line of the Y. Not really proper cursive. Again, all these lowercase letters, for the most part, should be flowing together without ever having to pick up your pen or pencil. So my cursive is a little bit influenced by print, and again, that copper plate font. So get back to the capital letters, P, Q, R, S, T. U. That's going to be 1, 2, 3. U, V, W. Missed my line there a little bit, so I'll just cheat and erase it. And again, I like that V to kind of just sweep over the entire word, like if I was going to take my dog to the vet or my pet to the vet and just have that capital letter encompass the whole word. So there's V, W, X, Y, at least how I write them. And then finally, Z. Now, a capital Z doesn't look too much different than a lowercase z. And if someone's not very familiar with cursive, as they see the rest of the word, You know, if they don't recognize the capital Z, oh, you're going to the zoo. Okay, and they would just normally finish that letter off. So let me pause this, get this cleaned up, and I'm going to just put all the lowercase letters string together as I write them. I'm Mr. True. Thanks for watching.